Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Exactly 6 months ago, the famous Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. He was killed, probably tortured. The revelations about this murder have caused an uproar around the world and have prompted accusations without precedent against Saudi Arabia. 6 months later, the allies of Saudi Arabia seem eager to turn the page on this somber chapter, and they want to reconcile with Saudi Arabia. Khashoggi's fiancée, Hatice Cengiz, is with us today via satellite from Istanbul. Thank you very much for being with us. Hatice, this now infamous date of October 2nd, 2018, when Jamal entered the consulate, he was actually there to obtain a document to allow him to get married with you. Obviously, the past 6 months have been very difficult for you, and you must be rethinking about that day every day.
Yes, indeed. Since October 2nd, as you have just said, and until today, 6 months have passed, but I feel like it just happened yesterday. It's still very present with me. The influence of that event is still having an impact on my life today.
As I said, this was supposed to be an important moment for your marriage. You were discussing about arrangements, about your apartment, what you were about to do. Do you still imagine what would have happened after this October 2nd if those tragic events hadn't happened?
Probably today we would be married. We would have a normal life. We would have a house. Jamal would have continued participating in his activities, his very intense activities as a writer in the United States. He would have been going on with his projects. And probably we would have lived in Turkey and in the United States. It's very interesting. You know, when you attack someone, when you kill someone, the assassins always forget that the life of that person is related to other lives. When Jamal died, they also killed my life. They killed my projects. They killed my dreams. They killed everything I had. And that's why, well, you know, I was thinking about a new life for myself. I was thinking about marriage. And now I'm in the middle of an international crisis. The person I loved the most was savagely killed. And so much sadness came upon me. I've tried to build my life again, but you know, I'm still suffering from the consequences of that act.
Of course, there have been very morbid details, and I don't want to get back to this, but there's one question that remains 6 months later. Where is Jamal's body? There have been various hypotheses. Some said he was in a well, maybe, or in a giant oven at the residency of the consul of Saudi Arabia in Istanbul. I imagine that the fact that you don't know where his body is, the fact of not being able to bury him, makes it impossible for you to get over his death.
Absolutely. As you say, my last goodbye, when you say your last goodbye to the person you love the most, you never think it's the last time you'll speak to them. When you lose someone, such a separation, I don't know if you can imagine how traumatic it is for me. Only if you've lived through something like this can you really understand it. You can't put it in words. Suddenly, a man disappeared from my life, totally, and his body disappeared as well. It's very traumatic. And psychologists recognize this traumatism for people who don't have a body to mourn. You know, investigations are continuing. Public opinion is still involved. But it's true, I would like to know where his body is. Investigations are continuing in Turkey and Saudi Arabia, and I hope that at the end of the day I will know where his body is. I still have hope. I hope that the truth will come to light one day after this terrible, brutal assassination that took place before the eyes of the world. He was massacred. He was murdered in a horrible way, and investigations have not yet led us to the truth. And it is a shame for all of humankind. It's not only something that makes us suffer, those of us who knew him, but it's really important for journalists. It's important for all of us. And I would like the truth to be known. I would like the journalists of the world to launch a campaign to defend the values of journalism. The fact that he was killed in this brutal manner, and if journalists remain silent, this is a shame. This would be shameful.
Have the Saudi authorities reached out to you, not necessarily to present excuses, but at least condolences? Or something? Or nothing?
After October 2nd and until today, the Saudian authorities have not given me any condolences. They have not called me or written to me. They have not tried to contact me in any way. But I don't really necessarily want them to do so. I haven't asked for them to contact me. There has been no communication.
Concretely, do you think European countries are acting in the correct manner?
When the case became public, of course, people heard about it around the world, and newspapers and televisions reported on it. The international community became aware of it. It was widely reported. In Turkey also, the media, the government followed this case closely. But despite this strong media interest, and despite the fact that the case remains unresolved, the countries in the European Union, the leaders of the member countries in the EU, I think they should have taken bigger steps. We haven't really heard much from them. They should have taken a stronger position in order to push the investigation forward. You know, we talk about the EU values, the values that have prevented Turkey from membership in the EU, supposedly. Where are these values now? How are they defending these values now? We're talking about human rights, of course. There are countries in the EU that have had different attitudes, that have applied sanctions, but generally, the EU has not had a strong enough reaction in order to punish those responsible for this attack, and there have not been necessary sanctions. And I think that the whole world would agree with me.
When it comes to the Trump administration, we know it had a very ambiguous attitude. It continues to say it will hold Saudi Arabia accountable for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. You were yourself invited by Donald Trump several months ago, but you decided not to go. Do you think that Donald Trump is doing all he can to make sure we know the truth about this story?
Donald Trump and the American administration, I think they look at it from a bilateral economic point of view. They have an important economic relationship with Saudi Arabia. I think that Trump's declarations were probably political in nature. That doesn't mean that it won't change in the future. We hope that this will improve in the future, in fact, and we will continue struggling so that people are more aware of the values that Jamal held so dear. In the United States, the freedom, human rights are inscribed in the Constitution, and so these are values that were shared by Jamal. And the Trump administration team has held positions that may differ from one person to another, but the United States has not really taken one strong position. And I think maybe more positive things will happen in the future with the help of the U.S. Congress.
Hatice, many fingers have been pointed at the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman as the one who ordered the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. There are some wiretaps where he's heard threatening him. Do you think that he's the one who gave the orders to a team to come to Istanbul to kill Jamal?
When the investigation is over, I hope we will know the truth. I don't know if it is this or that person. People are aware of different forms of evidence that exist. Saudi Arabia did confess 17 days afterwards that they were responsible for this event. I think it was on the 18th of October that they made an official statement saying that Jamal had been killed inside the consulate. But there are still some very mysterious points that have not been cleared up, and I would like to know who gave the order to kill Jamal. I would like to know who killed him and in what way. And in this process, I try to remain positive.
Well, this was precisely what I wanted to ask you as a conclusion. Hatice, do you think that one day you can go back to having a normal life?
Let me tell you how I feel. No, I couldn't. You know, life will go on. The sun goes up, the sun goes down, people are born, people die, lives begin, lives come to an end. But what an individual lives, it remains in their heart. And this story never reached its end with Jamal, and so my heart is still very painful. In my heart, I have our story, and I have the painfulness of a story that did not come to its conclusion. I think that my life will not have the meaning that it would have had with Jamal. It doesn't mean that I will never be happy again, but I do think that he was killed through a betrayal, and life will never be the same for me. Life will never be as beautiful for me again. Maybe it seems a bit sentimental. Maybe as time goes by, I will feel less pain, but this is what I'm feeling now.
Hatice Cengiz, thank you very much for being with us from Istanbul on the occasion of the 6th month of this murder. We all hope that one day we will know all about it for us, but especially for you. Thank you very much. And thank you for watching this exclusive interview here on France 24. Stay tuned for more news.